So now here we are, we've graduated, we've moved into our various orientation programs. And if you were going to design an orientation program for the future, what do you think that might look like? And what were some of the benefits of your program, of your orientation? So we'll start with Grace. And what are your thoughts on that?
So I had a few different preceptors throughout my orientation, which I really liked because it gave me, I feel like, a very broad idea and a lot of different ways that people go about doing things. Like you just learn a lot from different people because, again, not everyone does things the same way. But with that, I feel like whenever you are getting an orientee, training someone, all of the preceptors, I don't know if they should have a meeting or a class, like, to just be on the same page. Because that's also hard whenever you spend, say, 1 week with someone and you get used to the way they do things and you're going about doing them. And then the next person is like, oh, that's not right. And then it kind of creates some confusion. So it's, well, which way is the right way? Someone's saying it's right, someone's saying it's wrong. So I think really making sure before the new people start that everyone's on the same page with going about teaching, I think that would be a really good, very positive change.
Yeah, well, standards of work is huge, and that helps in all aspects of healthcare. And that's why we have processes and procedures. So I think that's a really great point. If we're going to have individuals as preceptors, there should be a formalized program around that where, everybody is doing everything the same because consistency matters. So Allie, what about you?
I would agree. I started off with a preceptor for like 2 weeks, and then I was bumped around between like 6 different people, like only for a shift, maybe 2 shifts if I was lucky. And so there was a little bit of inconsistency where I almost regressed because they weren't familiar with where I was at in my orientation process, what I could do, what I didn't feel comfortable. So that was a little hindering, but eventually I was with someone for the last like 6 weeks, I think it was. And I felt so comfortable with her, and I like learned a lot, and I had that full like, okay, step by step, we're progressing and everything to the end. But I will say I learned so much from each of the people that I did precept with. Like you said, like I learned something different from each person, and I thought that was really valuable and a peek into like different ways that everyone works. So it's a balance, right? Everything's a balance, yeah. Yeah. So I would also say that I know firsthand, like when I was off orientation, I was getting patients that I had never experienced before, like kids in halo traction or just traction in general, or different procedures where these kids had different drains, and I was unsure, and I felt like burdening asking someone, I need you to explain this to me because I don't know. So I feel like I know it's really hard in the short orientation process to see everything, but it would really be helpful to like almost have a checklist and really go through, okay, like maybe they're not comfortable with this yet. So like maybe we need to have something like another one of those patients. I know, for example, a girl on my unit, she had just came off orientation and she had never had this certain drain that's like, it's an EBD, and she had a double EBD, and I had never even had one before. And she was like, I've never had one. I don't know how to handle this. Like, and you just feel for that because she's almost getting like thrown to the wolves. And didn't have that experience like she should have had. So I think there should be a way to really make sure we have everything covered, which is hard.
Yeah, and like what you're saying though with a checklist, I think is a really good way to maybe go through kind of your, like, not necessarily your evals, but your meetings with your charge nurse or your meeting with your manager and say, okay, here's where I'm lacking, and how do we proactively or how do we kind of plan for exposure to that? And even if it's somebody else's patient, are you able to somehow get exposed to that in some way? And that's so much easier said than done. And I don't live the lives that you do in trying to like, oh, hey, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and caring for my patients and go and learn in the middle of the day. But if there was a way to kind of create some type of program within your continuing education, like so formalized continuing education that would allow you that exposure, that might be something to consider. Sophia, what are your thoughts?
So on my unit, the nurse has a lot of different roles. Just within one unit, we have labor and delivery, we have triage, postpartum, lactation consultant, so many different roles that you can have. Special care nurse for infants or for newborns. And I think that I was given the opportunity to spend a day at some point within my orientation with each of those roles. Even I started with postpartum, and then, spent days with each of the different nurses. And I feel like that helps you see a bigger picture or the whole picture of the unit. And it just helps you understand how to make things run better and how to help in different ways. And then eventually, you train into those roles, but even just seeing them for a day really helps.
Very good. Okay. So thinking about what we just talked about with orientation and really understanding, kind of what we could do to kind of expand upon orientation or improve upon it.